Oh, the spear.
Yeah. I don't know what
So they said we could use a lot.
Now we call this the last Caravaggio. For a long time, actually, it was a lost Caravaggio. So it had stayed in the same family for 300 years, and gradually over time, the name had become separated and the subject matter. When it was acquired by the bank in Italy in the 1970s, it was thought to be by one of Caravaggio's followers. And it was only the sensational discovery of a letter in the archive in Naples, which we've borrowed for the exhibition, that actually told us that in May 1610, just weeks before he died, Caravaggio was painting a Martyrdom of Saint Ursula. Even by the standards of a very violent period of history, Caravaggio does seem to have led an extraordinarily violent life. So the 10-ish years that he spends in Rome from the mid-1590s through to 1606, it's this kind of endless litany of charges against him. So he's kind of clearly this sort of swaggering, sword-carrying, threatening, violent man, endlessly getting into altercations with sort of everyone he encounters. It really comes to a head in 1606 when he kills a longtime enemy, a pimp called Ranuccio Tomassoni, and he has to flee, even though he's the most celebrated artist in Rome, even though he has cardinals and collectors begging for his paintings. There's nothing they can do. That is a very serious crime, and so he has to flee to the south.
So they said we could use a lot.
I think you can think of Caravaggio as controversial in two different ways. I think obviously now, we ask more questions about celebrating someone who is so violent and abusive and everything else. But there is actually, within his lifetime, the great controversy is how he paints, which I think is very funny for us today, because he unleashes such a pictorial revolution that this way of painting actually becomes very normal. We're very used to seeing real people in paintings now, and we're used to seeing dirty fingernails. We're used to the idea of an artist just taking a paintbrush and painting straight onto the canvas. In Caravaggio's time, that was outlandish. It was completely new.
Caravaggio is one of the most important and well-known artists across the world, and his influence went through all the period and all the artists that arrived later. And I think that it's important to go to the root of his work.
He was definitely a little bit of a risk taker, both in his personal life and in his artwork. I mean, many famous painters around his era didn't like his artwork because he never did base sketches on his paintings. Every painting he did was just base flat on a blank canvas. And in his personal life, he carried that same amount of risk. With managing to find all the time to paint, he also managed to find all the time to get into fights and brawls, but he was such a well-connected artist that he managed to get out of many of these big conflicts that he was in.
The National Gallery is turning 200 on the 10th of May this year, and we felt it was incredibly important for our bicentenary to have a masterpiece here in London, but importantly a masterpiece in an exhibition that was going to be free, that was going to be available for everybody.